this rolling here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hassan, back with a brand new episode here on The Truth. Back once again with my boy, AJ Ponciano. AJ, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing great now. How about yourself?
Doing great as well. We are back for Week 8 here in the NFL. I'm super excited for Week 8, particularly this Thursday night matchup. Last week, you had your Thursday night matchup as the Saints got dismantled by the Broncos. Obviously, disappointing game for you as a whole. Disappointing game for me, Alvin Kamara, fantasy owners. As you mentioned in the show about the Week 7 takeaways about selling the team, I couldn't agree more. I think Dennis Allen's screwed, and I was thinking that as we were watching the game. I was like, yeah, this guy will not have a starting gig with the New Orleans Saints next year. But curious to kind of see how the Saints finish out the year. Obviously, there's a lot of talent on that team. They've dealt with some injuries, guys out for the year, things like that. Broncos looked fine as well. I mean, they look better than they did before, and I still can't believe their QB room is Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, and Jarrett Stidham, but it's working, so I guess that's what you can ask for. This week, however, we got the best Thursday night matchup of the year. Yes, you heard it first. The best team, I can't say the best team in the NFC anymore, but one of the best teams in the NFC, the Minnesota Vikings, 5-1, travel to take on the Rams, who I think are 3-4.
Yeah.
That might be right. Yeah, something like that. Yes, my Minnesota Vikings are playing on Thursday night, which is tremendous. Well, actually, no, because we're not really good. We don't have Kirk anymore, so we don't got to worry about the primetime games. But there's that reputation and that saying, and we got to go on the road, which shouldn't be fun. But anyways, enough rambling about how great the Vikings are. We're going to go ahead and give you guys everything you need to know for fantasy football here for the Thursday night game. We'll give you our must starts, must sits, sleepers, and busts to get you guys as prepared as possible. So without further ado, AJ, go ahead and give me any starts that you may have.
I'm going to start Jordan Addison, and I think it's just time for him to break out, and I think they could be against this Rams, who is a military defense up to this point, allowing almost 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, to 5 interceptions up to this point in the year. One of their biggest weaknesses is through the air, and if I'm going to have to guess, they're going to have to double team Justin Jefferson. I don't expect in this game to have Jalen Naylor have 4 receptions for 74 yards. I think a lot of those may go to Addison. One thing that does kind of scare me with Addison is he only has one game over 5 targets of 8, where he only had 3 catches for 36 yards. In all the other games, he has consistently been at 3 catches on 4 targets. Last week, 3 for 66. His season high was 3 for 72 with a touchdown. I expect him. Actually, I wasn't expecting. I want him to have a good game. I was a really big Addison fan last year. I got him in fantasy, and he helped carry my team, especially when Jettas was injured. But Addison, he needs a breakout game. I could definitely see this be a game where he either gets a touchdown with like 70 yards, like he did in his second game back, or his first 100-yard game of the season. Like I said, I think there's going to be a safety on top. There's going to be at least or safety up top on Jettas and at least man coverage or no type of zone against him because Jettas destroys any type of zone coverage. I expect Addison to have a good game here. My second guy, I have Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones really carried the team last week, had a really good game, and he's honestly having a pretty good season. I was not expecting this out of Aaron Jones coming over from the Packers to the Vikings. But in 6 games, 443 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Through the air has been solid as well. 20 receptions, 190 yards, only 1 touchdown. So only 3 combined touchdowns on the year. But honestly, the touches, I mean, so far this week, or last week, he had 93 yards for a touchdown, 14 carries, 3 receptions for 23 yards. I expect him to have somewhere around those numbers as well. The run defense, again, bottom tier for the Rams this past year, or for so far throughout this year. And I expect Aaron Jones to keep on going to him. The only game where they had 2 games against 2 top run defenses where he didn't get over 10 carries against the Jets and the Niners. But outside of that, he's had a minimum of 14 carries. And when he's gotten at least 14 carries, he's gotten at least 90 yards, which is kind of insane because that is super efficient. He also can give you a couple catches. He's had a couple games with 5 catches as well. I expect against this Rams team, I think it will be a blowout by the time the game is over, and I think that's going to rely heavy on Aaron Jones in the run game early on.
So I got 3 starts. First is going to be Sam Darnold. He is the 17th ranked position quarterback, but hey, Mahomes is 22nd. So is Sam Darnold the GOAT? No, he's not the GOAT, but there's 21 other quarterbacks that are better than Patrick Mahomes right now. My point proven. No, anyway, Sam Darnold obviously has had a pretty solid year. He's kind of cooled off a little bit as of late. Week 5 against the Jets only had 4.2 points. In the bye week last week, 16.2, excuse me. But the weeks before, 23, 20, 19 was in a good position. He's obviously racked up the touchdowns. One of the things he's also kind of racked up is the interceptions. He's had 1 interception a game in every game besides one, but as a whole, has been relatively solid. His touchdowns have been able to kind of make up for the fact that he's thrown a couple of picks, or I guess 5 picks on the year, at least so far this season. But the 12 touchdowns definitely does help with that. He showed a little bit more versatility in the running game as well. Last 3 games, 4, 5, and 7 carries. I know it's not necessarily insane to think about, but he's good for 20, 30 yards a game to get you 2 or 3, 4 extra fantasy points. But I think this is going to be another good week for him. Had a good week last week, 16 fantasy points, especially for a guy like Sam Darnold. You got to be pleased about that. I think, the Rams is kind of a favorable matchup for him, even though it is on the road there in LA. He has always done well in that stadium, and I think that's going to continue here. I also think that Rams defense is a little bit weaker than people really think it is. Secondly, I'm going to go with maybe a surprise here to start, and it's going to be Colby Parkinson. I used Colby Parkinson in week 5 when my tight end was on a bye, and he had 12.2 fantasy points. He's the new Tyler Higbee, I guess you could say. Tyler Higbee had a good year that one year, kind of fell off the radar, but Colby Parkinson has done a good job of kind of maintaining the footing, especially at certain situations. Yeah, maybe he's not a big name guy, but a guy that could definitely fill in the mix here. Cooper Kupp, I believe, is good to go, or is it trending towards being good to go? I believe Puka's still going to be out, but I do know Cooper Kupp's going to be on somewhat of a pitch count just because he's obviously missed a good chunk of the year like he has in years past. I think he's going to look to guys like Colby Parkinson. It was kind of revealing when like Demarcus Robinson, for example, kind of had some quiet production and just quiet games as a whole, especially when, guys like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are out. So it's really kind of hard to tell with the Rams what they're going to do. But if you want a reliable tight end option, especially on a Thursday night game, I think Colby Parkinson could definitely be your guy. This is more of a start if your tight end's on a bye, you want to try something new, something like that. And then finally, as you mentioned, Aaron Jones. He should be a must start. He's had a couple of spotty weeks, but relatively consistent. He's going to be a PPR guy. Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold, for that matter, really like to dump it off to their running back. So you're going to get a heavy dose of Aaron Jones. Ty Chandler has not had the impact that people were expecting him to, not me, but Aaron Jones has definitely stepped up to the plate and has kind of been a very versatile running back that if you drafted him could complement your team very well. Okay, what about sits?
I have Sam Darnold, and it's less of Sam Darnold having a bad game. I think he'll go 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He'll throw for 250 to 280 yards. But like I said, I think by game's end, this is going to be a blowout. I think they're going to rely a lot on the run or the run early on. I think Aaron Jones, this could be a game where you see him get 18 to 20 touches on the ground, maybe a couple receptions as well. Like I said, I think this game will be a blowout. Sam Darnold's not going to have to do that much. He's going to be more the game manager. Like I said, I think he will have an interception off like a play action drive or off a tip drill, but I could also see him have a 60-yard touchdown off of one drive. So this is less of Sam Darnold being bad this game. I just expect a blowout here, and Sam Darnold not have to do too much. Just have to go get some first downs and run clock.
Yeah, so for me, I got 3 sits. The first one's going to be Matthew Stafford. I feel like I'm the biggest Matthew Stafford hater just in general. The weeks that I do tend to hate on Stafford more, he actually has somewhat success. But in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't had the best of seasons. He's the 26th ranked quarterback right now, which obviously is not very good, particularly for, where he was at. I mean, 26 is 26 out of 32, not very good. Last week against the Raiders, had 154 yards for 1 interception. Only 3 touchdowns on the year to 4 interceptions. Obviously, you're going to get 0 rushing value. Has -3 rushing yards on 3 carries this season. He's only had 1 game of over 300 yards, which was in week 1 against his former team in Detroit. He at times is kind of a game manager. It's definitely hurt him when he doesn't have guys like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Also, that Vikings defense is one of the best defenses in the league, and they've absolutely dominated quarterbacks that aren't mobile because they bring these heavy blitzes, these man zero cover zero blitzes, absolutely hurting guys like Matthew Stafford because at least scrambling quarterbacks are able to kind of scramble out, save their offensive line, and make some plays with their legs. Stafford isn't that guy. So I think favorable matchup it goes to Minnesota in this one, and especially since maybe Cooper Kupp for sure is coming back. Puka Nacua probably not. Cooper Kupp's still going to be on a pitch count, which is definitely going to hurt him as far as overall production, which obviously you don't want to see there. But yeah, that's the reason why I'm sitting him. Also sitting Cooper Kupp if he is healthy. Like I said, we are recording this early in the week, so I don't really know for sure, but he was a full participant on Monday's practice. I think the expectation was for him to play on Thursday night, a couple of weeks ago, trying to get him back to this position. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, the player, is a tremendous player. We all know that. He obviously had a great week one there, 32 fantasy points. We're like, hey, Cooper Kupp's back. Quiet in week two before getting injured, and then obviously he's missed the last 4 games. Biggest thing with Cooper Kupp, moving forward is that pitch count I'm concerned about. Obviously, I'm not concerned about overall play. He had 14 receptions with Puka Nacua on his side, and he would probably get 14 receptions every week if for example, Puka Nacua wasn't in the lineup and Cooper Kupp was fully healthy. But biggest thing is he's not fully healthy. I believe, as a whole, I think it's his ankle. But think of guys like Mike Evans, for example, during the Monday night game, who had to leave the game because of not being fully healthy, trying to push it too much when he probably shouldn't have played. And wide receivers is always tricky because they're running routes every single play. So I would be curious to see what happens with Cooper Kupp moving forward. But in this matchup here, I'm definitely going to sit him, especially since I don't think he's going to be fully healthy. And then finally, I'm going to go with Jordan Addison. I know you mentioned Jordan Addison. He's had exactly 3 receptions in every game that he's played: week 1, 4, 5, and 7. Yeah, he's kind of a high ball threat. He's a guy that's a big average per catch kind of guy, but the repetitions and the receptions is what really concerns me. He's kind of a boomer bust type of guy, and he's kind of been that way ever since his career started. On top of that, TJ Hawkinson, I think, is going to be back to playing. If TJ Hawkinson's back, I think that definitely hinders Addison's production. I think Addison's big money was going to come from Hawkinson not being on the field, and Jalen Naylor kind of outplayed him at times. And Addison's obviously dealt with some off the field stuff. But it's be curious to see one of Hawkinson's back, but two if Jefferson is kind of contained like he's been contained in the past. So there are a lot of variety of factors that could really impact Jordan Addison's play. But regardless, I mean, it's been Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison at times. Jefferson's been a bit quiet as far as the receptions are concerned, but Darnold's has kind of just contributed the wealth elsewhere. And Jordan Addison really hasn't consistently been a guy that I would feel comfortable starting in a flex position, just because of that boomer bust kind of philosophy. Okay, what about sleepers?
I'm going to go Stafford, mainly because, like I said, I think it's going to be a blowout game. I think Stafford could rack up a lot of just empty yards, a lot of empty stats for you, which, I mean, fantasy value you take. I mean, every passing yard's fantasy points for you. Every touchdown's fantasy points for you. I think you'll finish the game with 2 touchdowns and interception up to this point. I think he does throw for right around 300 yards. And the last time Cooper Kupp was in the lineup, he threw for 300 yards back in week 1, which I get it, that was a while back. But now he's getting his number 1 wide receiver back. I think Cooper Kupp, I think he'll probably play 70 to 80% of the snaps. Seems like he is pretty healthy. He was a game time decision just last week, so he was almost there. He was about to play last week, but kind of one of those things that just didn't feel 100%, didn't feel right starting in that game, so they gave him an extra week. And now he should be a little bit better. He should be a little more healthy coming into this game. I get it. It's not as long. You don't get the full week. You only get 5 more days up to that point. But I mean, I think Stafford could have a great game. I get it that this week there is no buys in the NFL. So all your starting quarterbacks, all your high end starting quarterbacks that you drafted or have been on your team, you're probably starting. But two quarterback leagues, super flex leagues, like the one that we're in, Stafford I don't think is a bad option to start for this week. And then I have Tutu Atwell. Tutu is kind of one of those explosive guys. I mean, he's very twitchy, very elusive. Has had a solid season so far. I mean, not the best. I mean, you'd expect a little bit more with having Kupp and Puka out. But last week, 6 receptions on 9 targets, 51 yards. Week before that, 6 receptions on 10 targets, 58 yards. He hasn't really had many explosive games. He did have against San Francisco 4 receptions for 93 yards, and then against Chicago 4 receptions for 84. Again, this is a guy who's like last second, you put in your lineup, just kind of hoping that he goes off. But again, it could be hard. Cooper Cup coming back, but on the other hand, there could be a lot of focus on Cooper Cup, and this could open up Tutu Atwell to get one of those games where he has 5 receptions. And Tutu is one of those guys that if you give him one play, he could potentially give you a 60-yard touchdown. Just if you get the ball in his hands, get the right blocking, and he's one of those guys who can make one of those explosive plays.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there with Tutu, which is why he's going to be one of my sleepers. I mean, Tutu Atwell has kind of been the guy that stepped up with Cooper Cup and Puka Nacua out. His last two games has had 6 receptions apiece for 58 yards and 51 yards. Still looking for that first touchdown of the year, but that could definitely come, especially in this matchup against the Vikings. On top of that, he's only rostered in 15.3% of leagues. So this is more of a deeper league kind of thing, like a 14-16 team where you're looking for potentially high risk, high reward in a guy like Tutu Atwell who could give you at least consistently 10 to 12. Obviously, there's no bye week, so that does kind of impact your team whatsoever. It's not like you're searching for buys or searching for placeholders, things like that. But overall, it is definitely something to monitor moving forward when Cooper Cup and Puka Nacua are back. But even if Cooper Cup is back, as mentioned, he's going to be in a little bit of a pitch count. So I definitely think Tutu will consistently be a good option. He's been consistent the last 3 weeks. I think that consistency will maybe reward him finally with a touchdown. And then my final sleeper is going to be TJ Hawkinson. I mean, I don't know if he's going to play. I really don't. I hope he does, just because I've been waiting for TJ Hawkinson to play for a period of time now. How fully healthy is he going to be? Who knows? There was a good chance that he was going to play on Sunday, but they kind of had a decision to make. You want to rest him on Sunday and maybe get him for that Thursday game, or whatever the case scenario was, give him the extra day of rest. And I think that's going to end up being what's going to happen. Who knows, though? There could be a kind of a setback that he's faced, but he's been really doing a great job with his practicing. They opened his window, which obviously is a good sign, meaning because once you open the window and you don't, if let's say you don't get activated in those 21 days, you're done for the year. So they opened his window. They were confident that he could play from the get-go. He got some practice in, has been training this offseason, really recovered well from his ACL and MCL injuries, I believe it was. But really excited to hopefully get him back on the field. The Vikings tight end play has been pretty dismal, to say the least. But that's only a sleeper if he is going to be playing. Obviously, if he's not, wouldn't start him. But, there's guys that come back from injuries typically get in the end zone right away. I think of Nick Chubb last week. So could be a good option, especially if you're kind of banged up at the tight end position. Okay, and then any busts.
I have Kyron Williams, and I'm not saying don't start Kyron Williams because I have him in one of my leagues and I'm going to start him because it's Kyron Williams at the end of the day. He is the fourth ranked position running back, but this Vikings run defense has been the second best in the NFL. Arguably, you can say the best. They have given up the second least amount of yards at 480, behind the Ravens at 340 or 350. But they've also given up 2 less touchdowns than the Ravens, only allowing 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, they've been great. They're giving up less than 100 total yards on the ground per game, not just to the running back once, to everyone, every quarterback, every running back 1, 2, 3, whoever runs the ball, they're giving less than 90 yards per game up to this point, and they're giving about a touchdown every other game on the ground. Kyron Williams, again, I'm starting in my league. You can say I'm contradicting myself by saying that he's going to be a bust, but I get it. I wouldn't expect anyone to bench Kyron Williams, but what I'm saying by this is don't expect too much out of Kyron Williams. He's been getting 20 plus points a game. Like I said, he's the running back 4 right now in PPR leagues. I would expect him to not get close to 20 points, maybe 12 points. He's going to get a couple receptions there. Probably 12 to 14 points is, I think, most realistic for Kyron in this game.
I don't have any busts, so go ahead and give me your game prediction.
Like I said, a little bit of a blowout. I think your guys are going to score, I would say 35 to 14. 35 to 14, I think, will be the final score.
I'm gonna go with the Rams winning. I really do like the optimism from you, but look, yes, I'm very well known. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, very very avid Minnesota Vikings fan, and we have been known to kind of choke seasons. 2016, we actually started 5-0, and we missed the playoffs. Yeah, because we started 5-0. We had a bye week, week 6, which we did this year. Lost the next 4 games. I hope that trend doesn't continue. I do think the Rams are going to win this game. I think it's going to be like 28-24. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I hope I'm wrong. But Vikings historically don't usually play well on the road in primetime games. They don't really play well in primetime games as a whole. On top of that, the Vikings Colts Sunday night game next week just got flexed to Sunday night. And there's no way in hell the Vikings win 2 primetime games back to back. So they're going to lose one or the other. I think they have a better chance of winning at home than losing. But I said, hope I'm wrong. But this is my non-biased side coming in. I think the Rams win this one 28-24. Thank you guys for listening to another episode here on The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter at @TheTruthAs1 to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports AZ and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity while also maintaining an ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON 15 for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by AJ Ponciano. Take care and good night.